Okay, just open Maya. Gonna make a walk cycle moving forward in Z. And the first thing I want to do is set my project. So I'm actually going to create a new project, walk cycle, and I'm going to put it in my class folder and accept the project. And I'm going to copy my clean version of Diane and put her into the scenes folder for good project management. Open scene, and it goes right to Diane. Boom. Couple cleanup things. I want this to start at frame 1. I only want 25 frames in my time slider, and for some reason she's set to 30 frames per second, so I'm going to set it to 24, and playback speed 24 frames per second by 1. Okay, there we go. And I prefer the spline IK version, so if you prefer the FK hips, you can change it there, but that's my preference. Not a right or wrong, just a preference. The spline IK allows for stretchier and more interesting things, but you also have to be a little bit careful. So frame 1, I'm going to set the first contact pose, grab the main control, center of gravity, drop it down, move the leg forward and in, because it's a more feminine walk, and about that far forward, and grab the heel pivot rotation. I prefer this to the roll controls, but that's personal. Again, you can do what you like. That's another way to go that's perfectly legit. And I want to make sure that there's just a little bit of looseness in that joint. I don't want it to be popping on the IK. Before I do that, hip control. So forward leg forward and down for the hip, and that allows me to scoot this further forward. The more aggressive, the more fast the walk, the more rotation in the hips. How much did I put in there? That seems about right. -6 and -5. That might be a bit much on the Z for that mellow a walk. Yeah, I think I like it. -4. There we go. For this leg, I'll move it back, grab this control, which does the roll up onto the foot, and slide it back, and also in, and keep sliding it back till about there. Drop the arms down, back a little more, do my quick hand pose. I prefer the metacarpal here than the built-in curl. The arms go opposite the shoulders. Again, I should do these upper body first, because now I'm going to have to redo my arm poses. So a little bit in Y and a little bit in Z, running opposite the hips. I'm going to turn off X-ray joints, shading X-ray joints, because I don't need to see the joints. I'm also going to make sure that this is open. My pick masks are open, all off, curves on. There we go. That makes it a lot easier. I don't accidentally select stuff I don't want. And for the head, I'll grab the head control and set it to global. Now I won't have to counter animate the head every time. Okay, now I want her to move forward in Z. Oops, looks like when I set it from 30 to 24, I lost some time there. So let's set this to 25. There we go. And I'm going to create some cones, and I'll use them as markers for the feet. Create poly primitive cone, scale it up. DV to snap. I like to put the pivot of the cone right there, and then I can X to grid snap it down to the origin. Line it up with that, and I line it up pretty carefully with the front of the toe. Duplicate it, scoot it back to where the heel would have been. Turn on geometry, and I will duplicate these, and then I'll duplicate all 4 cones and line them up with the first ones, duplicate them again and line them up, and now I have a clear target for where she's going to be on her last step. I'll turn off geometry, select all of the controls, turn off geometry and select the controls that go forward in Z, and that's the feet and the center of gravity. Go to frame 25, slide her all the way forward, because that's where she's going to be when she completes her walk. Like that. And to make sure that our walk loops nicely, we'll select all the controls and stamp a key. Then I go to frame 13, and you can see she's already lined up pretty well. This grid is annoying me, so I'm going to say display, grid options box, grid lines every 20 units, subdivisions of 5, pretty arbitrary, but now it's just not annoying me, but I still get to see the ground. It's more suited to the scale of this character. Okay. So I'll go to my front view, and using the space bar, I don't really want any X rotation, that's fine. So this is minus 6.6, so I'll set it positive and positive, and grab the chest control. Let's go minus 4. I'm just rounding it out, and positive 4.5. Minus 4.5. There we go. And I'll adjust the arms back, back. Do the legs. I'll do that in my side view. First, I'll zero out that. And then slide it back. Line it up pretty evenly with the other one. Grab its roll control. Right now it's just being pulled off the IK into that shape, but we want to control that. So rotation. There, now we have control. And we'll slide it back a little more. It looks like we have to lift it up a teeny bit. There we go. Grab the other foot control. Scoot it forward. zero out its roll. There we go. And then I grab its heel pivot, which raises it up a little because the heel pivot's not placed that great. There we go. Get that heel on the ground for first contact. So now we have her sliding forward. Let's grab that front camera and move it forward so we can actually see her. There we go. Okay, and so we've got part one of that walk. 3 contacts set. I'm also going to stamp all those controls at frame 13. And I go to my passing. I'm going to grab the planted foot and make sure it's planted. I want to zero out the heel and the ball of foot. And that actually does a pretty good job of just planting it down. Key that. I'm going to come up to the center of gravity, lift her up onto that base of support, and adjust it so she's right over her foot. Actually, I'm going to grab that center of gravity and the feet controls and set them to linear in Z, Animation Editor, Graph Editor. And I just want translate Z, translate Z, translate Z, and all of that tangents linear. It just helps everything. It makes the movement cleaner and less slidey. I only do that with Z, not anything else. Continuing with this passing pose. The other thing that's very important is the weight shift, and that comes in the passing. I'm going to slide that over just a little so that you can see in the front view her center of mass is over the base of support. Okay, so we'll come to the next passing, frame 19. I'll start with the ball of foot and heel pivots. Go to frame 19 and zero out their rotations. And that just plants her down on the ground. Then I can raise her up just a little. About there. Well, I want that to appear straight, but I don't want her popping off. And again, I'm going to scoot her over. The hip control, I don't really want any X or Y, but I do still want a little bit of that Z, because this hip, other way. That means I have to drop her down a little bit. There we go. Come back to here because I forgot it on this one. Again, I'm going to zero out the X and Y, but I want to make sure that that pelvis is dealing with gravity correctly. And that probably means I have to drop this down a little as well. There we go. Get her back on the ground. No popping of the IK. Looks like I didn't raise this foot. Rotate that. We barely clear the ground when we walk, and that's why we can trip over a very small object. But I do find that in animation, I tend to give it a little more than reality. Otherwise, it looks like they're just dragging their feet. Raise it up on this passing. Okay, so now maybe that's a little too far forward for that. So now I've got the passing. Weight shift, centered. I don't have this weight shift yet. So that's why I check it. I check it in front view, side view, 3/4 view to get the information. I don't think I like this arm pose on the contacts, so I'm going to fix that. Just swing that forward a little more, and then middle mouse button to 25 and stamp it. I think I may have just forgotten that arm. That's better. How about this arm? Looks like I didn't touch that arm on the other contact. I feel like that's a little wonky. Yeah. So I just used the Euler filter, and you can see I feel like that is much more sensible. And I'll have to fix it for the passing, but now it makes sense. Okay, so let's check the arms on the passing. Just want to pull it out of the body so it's not colliding with the rib cage. And that's about it for now. This one seems to be okay. I'll just give it a little extra degree so it's intentional. Very small amounts, but my passings are lower than my contacts, so that's not right. Okay, let's work on our downs. So for the down, this hip is already going to have, let's drop that down to 4. I don't want that to be more extreme than it is everywhere else, and change this to -6. That way it'll balance out better. Sorry, -4. And so on the down, that weight is already shifted. So I'll start with that. Then make sure that these are zeroed out. In their rotation. I'm going to select these two and middle mouse button and key selected, because I did adjust them in the passing. I want it to match on the down. And you can see she's pulling off of her IK just a hair. So I'm going to take her center of gravity and pull that down just enough, and a little bit of knee bend there before she straightens up into the passing. Okay, that's good. And then the up, just grab the center of gravity, bring it up. How's my foot roll doing? It's kicking in. Is it enough? I think it's too much. Too early for that peel off. No, I need some of it, definitely, because it's pulling off the IK if I don't. Well, just enough that that leg stays straight, and we're not getting pop, but we're not getting popping of the IKs, which made me need that I need a little more right here. Okay. My progression isn't linear. I often work on just like what bothers me most right now. There's some really wacky stuff. I should probably change this to gimbal. And you can see, yeah, this arm is already gimbal locked, and that's why it's causing so many issues there with the red and the blue, the X and the Z orientation. And that happened as soon as I dropped the elbow down. And that's why I have to keep using the Euler filter to fix it. So I've got my down, passing, up, contact. Let's get this down. Zero out the rotation on the feet controls, on the ones that I like to use for that. And on that down, I'm going to just adjust that X a little bit. Okay. And then I'm going to middle mouse button that to 19 so that it won't change. I didn't deal with this foot on the down properly. So the rotation for this foot on the down is a little bit interesting. What I tend to do is by here, I'm zeroed out on that roll. I'm going to lift up and rotate it in X on that so that the foot is just peeling off here. So we're going from and I don't like it, but you can see that that foot, I'm bouncing off the cone there because I transitioned between two different pivot points. So I'll add that extra key so it doesn't actually appear to be going backwards or sliding. Okay, so now I'll do this back foot on the down. Zero out those rotations. That one works a little better on that transition. Yeah, I'll still just scoot that forward just a little. Nice. Okay, that works. Okay, I want my center of gravity to match. So I'll just pull that down in the graph editor. And for the up, again, actually I just want to match the other one, so I'm just going to pull her up and try getting it to match. And that tells me I have to increase that foot roll out there to make sure it's not popping. And then I'll hit Alt-1 just to hide the joints, hide the curves, turn off my X-ray joints, and I just want to watch her walk, see how that's going. What have I forgotten? What do I need to change? Okay, the arms aren't great. I do feel like that left leg is being pulled off the IK into the app. Alt-1, X-ray joints. Not too bad in the front view. A couple things I look for. How much is the head going side to side? I feel like it's going too far to the left, to viewer left. I want to even that out a little more. And that's something I'll just do in the graph editor. What's this value? 1.75 minus 2. Just makes it a little cleaner. And I can just delete that keyframe. We don't need it. And I'm going to make this one go up, and this one go up, and point at its predecessor. I can do that with these guys too, make them linear. And I can delete these keyframes. Balance that one out a little more with the other one. That should help a little. Okay, much better. I feel like the side to side is a little exaggerated. I also feel like the torso is a little exaggerated. Not necessarily a bad thing, not necessarily a good thing. Alt-1 to bring back these. I think I'm going to tone down the chest a little. I'm just going to scale it from the center there. Yeah, it's not so ridiculously exaggerated. That's much better. Arms are still very problematic, and the head looks a little lifeless. I'm okay with the foot plants. How's it look in the side view? It's easier for me to scrub through slowly. Okay, so that left leg, pop. How's the right leg? Ooh, weird right there. So I want to address that pop first. Alt-1. What's causing it? Down's okay. I think it's the combination of the hip rotation, which I like, and this, and the side to side. So I'm just going to bring that down there. Teeny bit. And it feels like it's straightening now, but I don't think it's such a pop. down into the base of support. I think I want to grab this, and in the animation editor, graph editor, I'm going to break tangents. Bring that up sooner. So what I'm seeing is that right about here, it actually looks like the knee is going backwards in space. So that's something I need to fix. I think maybe I just bring her down a little more. Yeah, now I don't feel like that knee is going backwards when I scrub slowly. I think it also, I have too much foot roll here. So I'm going to dial that down a little bit, straighten that leg a little more in this pose. Whoops, too many controls selected. I may need another keyframe there. Okay, so I think I'm going to try linear. Whoops, linear. There we go. And now this is popping here, so better. Okay. Now what's going on with the right leg? Oh, I don't like how it's coming into that contact. Okay, I've never adjusted it for the up, so let's do that. Much better. Which makes me ask about this one on the up. I'm going to look at that right knee. I feel like I want just a little more roll on that right knee right there. Ooh, too much. And again, in the graph editor, I'm going to make that linear. Linear. What am I thinking? right knee in the 3/4. Yeah, I think that's okay. Let's start dealing with the hands a little more closely now. So go back to, we want a little bit more whip action. So here, bend the elbow and the wrist just a little, so we get the sense that they're lagging. And also here, I'm actually going to leave them just a little bit lagged. As they come back. And so then when we get to the down, they're starting to come forward at the shoulder. And so I'm going to let their momentum keep going back. I'll do the same on the other side. Let's see, I want these just a hair forward, a hair forward. That means I have to reset them in that original pose as well, so make sure they're both selected. And middle mouse button to 25 and stamp them. And then on the down, I will rotate them back just a little so that we get that sense of pendulum or whip action. Not too big. And I don't mind it straightening out there. But here on this down, I want them to lag a little. They're just a little more lively. Okay, cool. So one more thing I want to do for just a little bit more life. I'm going to grab the head control. I'm going to stamp it on the down and drop it just a teeny bit on the passing. And it'll go back up, and then it's already stamped on the down, on the contact. I'm going to stamp it again on the down. And about there, I'll just drop it a couple frames. Alt-1 to hide. Little overdone, but I like it. But I want to tone it down just a hair. Oh yeah, you can see they're pretty different there. Let's pull that one down, and then maybe both of them down just a little. Yeah, just a little bit of life there. I feel like I need to do a little more with the wrists. This arm isn't perfect yet. And I don't know what's up with this gimbal locked arm. It's killing me. Nope, no changes there. Okay, you can see there's a little wobbly here, and we don't really need those keyframes. and we don't really need these. They're also causing a little wobbly in the smoothness of the curve, so let's get rid of them. Wrists are a little better. I'm starting to notice this thumb more, which means it's in a pretty good place. I'm like noticing the thumbs and not the movement. I like how much the hands are lagging here, but I feel like I wanted to lag them just a little more this way. And a little more for this one as well on the swing forward for that pendulum swing. I'm just going to drag that because it's a little too sharp. So in the beginning, I totally want everything to be on the same frames, but as I refine, I'm okay with things getting just a little off. Okay, I like that better. Okay, I overdid it on this one a little bit. There, it goes too far. Dial that down just a hair. Okay. And so I'm ready to play blast it and hand it in. Right click on the time slider, play blast, save to file. Oops, I never saved this as something else, bad me. Perfect. Done and done.